Hey guys, what's up? It's Eric with Advanced Level Automotive. Welcome back to the channel. Right behind me I have a 2000 Acura 3.5 RL, and the vehicle actually came from a different shop. So the story behind this is that originally the vehicle went to the shop because it had the ABS light on and it had the VSA light on, and so they scanned it with the scan tool and they said that it had a code for left rear wheel speed sensor. So naturally they went ahead and replaced the wheel speed sensor, but after they replaced the sensor, they were still having the ABS light on and the VSA light on. So they hooked up the scan tool again, and this time they didn't have a code for the wheel speed sensor. They actually had a communication code for the ECM ABS module, and they had a steering angle code. So at that point, they got a little bit confused, decided they really couldn't figure out what was going on, so they sent it over here to me. Anyways, I've got the scan tool hooked up. Let me show you what I found. All right, so first of all, let me show you guys what's going on inside the vehicle. I'm gonna go ahead and put the key in the ignition and we're gonna start it up. The engine is running, and if you look over here on the upper right hand corner, you'll see that we have the VSA light, the ABS light illuminated. Then we also have this little triangular light right here, and that's for the VSA indicator. So let me go ahead and move you over to the scan tool, and I'll show you what we got. All right, so moving over to the scan tool, you'll see I actually have two different scan tools up here, and I'll show you why in just a minute. But if we move over here to the Autel MaxiSys, this is kind of my go-to scan tool. I'm used to using it now. I really like it, and so I decided to plug this one up. And by the way, let me show you guys where the OBD2 connector is, because if you guys are ever trying to hook up a scan tool to these Hondas, Acuras, early 2000s, you'll actually find the OBD2 connector right here behind this little ashtray. So in case you guys were curious. But anyway, moving over to the scan tool, again, I've got the MaxiSys hooked up. And the first thing that I noticed that I didn't like was that it wouldn't automatically read the VIN number. So I had to manually punch in the VIN number, which you can see it's punched in right now. And then the other problem I have is that my touchscreen stopped working. So I'm using a little mouse to work around that. So anyways, I've got the VIN number punched in. Let's go ahead and hit OK. Move this up a little bit closer so you guys can see that. All right, so it's coming up as an Acura RL. So yes, this is a USA vehicle. Okay, let's go to diagnosis, and we'll do a control unit. Let's find the ABS, TCS, and VSA. All right, so now we're in the ABS module, and the first thing I want to do is read codes, and we'll show you guys what codes are stored. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that. We're looking at code 84-1, steering sensor input error, and we're looking at code 98-1, ECU UNMATCH FAILURE. Now there was actually a third code here. I've actually been going through the diagnostic procedure with this thing. One of the things that I did was I cleared the codes, and I wanted to see which codes came back immediately. And these two are the ones that came back immediately, but we did actually have a different code. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'll post it here on the screen. That way you guys can see what other code might be coming up if you have this problem. Now, that code that was previously stored was also a communication code. So if you guys are running into the same problem and you have that code popping up, you could be dealing with the same thing. So anyways, again, we're looking at the steering sensor input. Of course, we're concerned with that. And we're concerned about this ECU UNMATCH failure. And like I said, these are pretty hard faults. So if I clear these codes, they come right back. So anyways, the reason I wanted to show you two different scan tools is because when I use this MaxiSys to go into the live data, let me show you what was so confusing about this, because this kind of threw me for a loop, and I just want to make sure you guys don't get thrown off by some of the stuff you might find using this particular scan tool for this concern. So anyways, we're in the live data, and the first thing I noticed, if you look here at the left front wheel speed sensor, you'll notice that it says we're going 143 miles an hour. And so immediately when I saw that, I thought, well, you know, there's probably an issue with the wheel speed sensor. And so, you know, I kind of went down a rabbit hole with that one. I started going through the diagnostic process to try to figure out if there was an issue with the wheel speed sensor, but, you know, I was coming up with nothing there. And then if you notice that the right front wheel speed sensor and the left rear wheel speed sensor and the right rear wheel speed sensor, they're all showing 0. And I noticed that when I start to drive the vehicle, these all move accordingly, but this one stays stuck at 143 miles an hour. So anyways, also the other thing I saw that I didn't like was this IG2, which is an ignition feed. This is an ignition voltage feed to the module. And if you look over here, it says 0 volts. And 0 volts is not a good thing for an ignition voltage source. So I thought that was probably an issue. Also, there's also an ignition 1 power feed. Let me find it. There we go. IG1 ignition voltage 1 power feed is also showing 0 volts. So then I started looking at an issue with whether or not we were missing the ignition voltage feed on IG1 or IG2 at the module. And again, I kind of went down a rabbit hole with that one, and it was getting me nowhere. And then I came back here to look at the steering angle. Let me show you what I found with the steering angle. So if you look right here, you'll see the steering angle. It's at 0% or 0 degrees, excuse me. And if you look at the engine speed right here, I want you to pay attention to something. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna move the steering wheel left and right, and just pay attention to the steering angle and the engine speed. So I'm gonna move the steering wheel. And I don't know if you can see the engine speed. It says we're going 11,856 RPM. I'm gonna move the other way. You'll see it says we're going 480 RPM. So again, what this is essentially a mix-up with the data pins. So somewhere in the software, when they were putting this thing together, they must have gotten these data pins mixed up. So instead of the steering angle moving, we're looking at the engine speed moving. And so we really can't trust any of the information that's on this machine here for this particular vehicle. Now, I'm not taking a shot at Autel or the MaxiSys. I love this scan tool. It's awesome. It does a lot of what I need it to do, and it does a lot of things that the more expensive scan tools won't do. But in this case, this really did throw me for a loop. So I just wanted to show you guys that. Now, let me take you over to this other scan tool that I have. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this old thing, the Soleus Probe. And I think when I bought this thing back in 2014, brand new, I think I spent like $7,000 on this thing because I bought the European package. And you know, now you can buy these things for like 500 bucks off of Craigslist. Let me just go ahead and peel off this screen protector. So anyways, let me go ahead and switch over to the Soleus Probe, and let me show you the data pins on that one. All right, guys, so moving over to the Soleus Probe, let's go under anti-lock brakes. It says we need K24, which is the key. I've already got that key installed right here. Of course, this is an old school scan tool where you still had to use those keys, which I'm surprised I even have half of them because I tend to lose those things. Anyway, so let's go into the module here. Okay, let's look under codes. And you'll see we have the same two codes, 84-1, steering sensor input error, and the 98-1, which is the ECU UNMATCH FAILURE. So now that we know we're still dealing with the same codes, let's go back and check out the live data. Okay, so going into the live data, the first thing you'll notice are the wheel speed sensors. You see left front, left rear, right rear, and you'll see that they're all 0 miles an hour. The vehicle is not moving right now. So we know that these data pins are correct. Let's go ahead and scroll down and see if we can find the ignition voltage feed. Okay, so right over here, you'll notice ignition 1 and ignition 2 voltage feed. You'll see that we have system voltage 12 volts on both of those ignition voltage feeds. So those are fine. Now let's move over to the steering angle sensor. And right here, you'll see the steering angle. This is the degree. And right now it's at 48 degrees because the steering wheel is off to the side. So let's go ahead and center that steering wheel out somewhere right about there. Now take a look at the scan tool. You'll see the steering angle degree, 0 degrees. Now I'm gonna move it to the left. You'll see it go negative. We're looking at -32. Now I'm gonna move it to the right. You'll see it positive 48. Move it to the left again. It's -32. to the right, negative 56. And again, all I'm doing, guys, is I'm just kind of moving the steering wheel this way, and then I'm moving the steering wheel this way. But every time I kind of go back to the center, it seems to be reading right about 0. So to be honest with you guys, it doesn't look like we have any problem with the steering angle sensor. It doesn't look like we have any problem with the wheel speed sensor. It doesn't look like we have a problem with the ignition voltage feeds. At this point, I don't think we really have any real problem. I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that, is it possible that this is maybe a software glitch or something happening with the computer? I think it really is a possibility, and let me show you why. All right, guys, so we're over here at the computer, and up on the screen, I've got IATN pulled up. Now, IATN is a resource that I've been using probably for the last decade or so. And if you guys don't know what IATN is, it's pretty much a platform, a forum where technicians can go back and forth, ask each other questions. There's a ton of information. There's a ton of resources on these pages. If you guys are technicians and you're doing this full time, I think that having a membership to IATN is a must-have. So anyways, like I said, going back to the vehicle, I had gotten to a point where I really didn't know where else to go because I had checked everything and I couldn't find anything really wrong with the vehicle. So to me, nothing was adding up. No matter what I did, I couldn't clear the 2 codes. They just kept coming back. So I decided to look on IATN, and I actually found an article over here, because you guys got to remember that if you're dealing with a problem, you know, there's a good chance that somebody else may have already run into this problem. And, you know, looking up on these forums, it's possible that you might find somebody else that has already found the solution for it. So like I said, I found this article here, and the guy's pretty much dealing with the same problem that I'm dealing with. I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but essentially he has the same 2 codes. He's got the 98-1 code, which is the ECU mismatch error. And then he's also got the 84-1, which is a steering code. And so if you look down into the replies, which is where technicians are pretty much giving their 2 cents. And some of these technicians are dealer techs, so they tend to have a lot more information about a specific make than, you know, most of us in the aftermarket have. You know, most of us guys that are doing aftermarket work, you know, we're always running into something that, you know, we just don't understand, and it's, you know, it just happens to be a Honda thing. So anyways, reading through these, I found some gold nuggets, and especially when I ran across this post right here. The guy said that there was a software bug that was causing the code 98, and so there's actually a procedure for manually clearing the code. And I mean, he wasn't the only one to input that. There's also this guy saying the same thing. He's ran into several of these that have this software bug, and they can be cleared manually. So I actually looked on Mitchell, and I found a tech article that explains what's going on. So if you look over here, you'll see that it says HDS software bug causes bogus VSA DTC 98. And if you read through the service information, it says if you use the HDS to clear a stored VSA DTC in any 2000 through 2004 Acura RL, you'll wind up with the VSA DTC 98. It says here you won't find the DTC in the service manual. It's bogus. So it's not even like a real code. It's just a bogus code. And it says here, blame it on a bug in the HDS software. Until the HDS software gets fixed, you'll need to manually clear the VSA control unit to get rid of this bad boy. I kind of like how they wrote this up. So anyways, it says here, manually clearing the VSA control unit is no piece of cake. That's because the manual clearing procedure on page 19-207 of the service manual is wrong. So even the clearing procedure that's in the service manual is not correct. It says here, cross out those steps in your copies of the service manual and use these steps instead. So these are the steps that they want us to go through in order to clear the code 98. Now, I've already done this, and I can tell you for certain I was able to clear the code 98 with this procedure. Now, it didn't clear the code for the steering angle sensor, which was the code 84-1. There's actually a separate procedure to clear that. But this procedure here will clear the code 98. And so if you're having that code popping up, this is the steps you're going to need to take. If you look here, step 1 is going to be to disconnect the HDS from the 16-pin data link connector. Now, HDS is going to be the factory Honda scan tool. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Honda scan tool. This code actually gets set with any scan tool. So any aftermarket scan tool, if you're using it to clear any DTCs in the ABS module, you're going to get this code 98 pop up. and you're gonna have to do this procedure to clear it. So anyways, they want you to disconnect the scan tool from the DLC connector. And then step 2, they want you to keep your foot off of the brake pedal, and they want you to press the parking brake pedal. So engage the parking brake. Step 3, they want you to press and hold the VSA off switch and then turn the ignition switch to the on position. Step 4, they want you to hold the VSA off switch until the system beeps 4 times. Then you're gonna release the switch. Then step 5, you're gonna watch for the VSA activation indicator on the instrument panel for at least 3 seconds. They say if the indicator comes on and then blinks rapidly 6 times, the DTC is cleared. If the indicator comes on and it stays on, you're gonna need to repeat the steps 1 through 4 until you get the light to blink rapidly 6 times. So like I said, this procedure was able to clear up the code 98. I'm gonna go ahead and recreate it on the vehicle for you guys, just so you can see how it's done. So let's go ahead and move over to the vehicle. All right, so moving back inside the vehicle. Now, before I show you guys the procedure, I just want to take you over to the scan tool, and I want to show you what codes are stored in the ABS module. Again, we have 2 different codes. We have 84-1, which is the steering sensor input error, and then we have 98-1, which is the ECU UNMATCH FAILURE. Now, I know I told you guys that I already cleared these codes, and I did because I did the procedure and I know it works. But honestly, to get these codes to come back up was actually really easy. All I had to do to get the 98 code to pop back up was go into the codes menu and clear the codes, even though it didn't have any codes. After I did a clearing of the codes, this 98-1 popped up. Now, to get the 84-1 to pop back up, all I had to do was try to do a neutral rewrite for the steering angle sensor, which if you just go to functional tests, there's a functional test for neutral rewrite, and that's for zeroing out the steering angle sensor. This function does not work in the scan tool. No matter how many times I try to do it, if I go in here to try to rewrite the neutral position of the steering wheel, I'll go through the procedure. It says place the front wheels in the straight ahead position, and we have that. Set this straight ahead, and then push Y, and then they're going to tell you to move the steering wheel to the right within 6 seconds. I moved it to the right, and then it says function test failed. So no matter how many times I try to write the neutral position of the steering wheel, the procedure doesn't work in the scan tool. And then after you're done with the procedure, it sets a code for 84-1. So I think what ended up happening was the other shop probably tried to do the steering angle relearn because, you know, they cleared the codes. And so they figured that that was one of the procedures they needed to do. But after they did that, they set the code 84-1. So like I said, we have the 2 codes. Now I'm going to show you guys how to clear them. We're going to start by clearing the code 98-1, and that's going to be by doing the manual clearing procedure. Again, let's go ahead and back out of the scan tool here. And step 1 is that they want us to disconnect the OBD2 connector. All right, so now that we have that disconnected, I'm going to go ahead and turn the ignition off. I'm just going to go ahead and take the key out so it's not beeping. And I've got the steps for the procedure printed up right here. And again, step 1 is they want us to remove the scan tool. Step 2, they say keep your foot off of the brake pedal, but they want you to push the parking brake pedal. So we're going to go ahead and engage the parking brake pedal. And then step 3, they tell us press and hold the VSA off switch and then turn the ignition switch to the on position. So the VSA off switch is located right here. We're going to press and hold this, and then we're going to turn the ignition on. And then step 4, it says hold the VSA off switch until the system beeps 4 times, then release the switch. Then if we look at step 5, it tells us to watch the VSA activation indicator on the instrument panel for at least 3 seconds. And what they're telling us is that we should see it blink rapidly 6 times, and that'll tell us that the DTC is cleared. So I'm going to go ahead and set the camera up, and I'm going to do it. All right, guys, so before we start the procedure, what I want you to pay attention to is going to be the little yellow light that pops up right here. That's going to be the VSA indicator lamp. So I'm going to go ahead and press the VSA off switch, and I'm going to hold it. Then I'm going to turn the ignition to the on position. When I do that, you're going to hear beeping. We're going to count 4 beeps. And after the 4th beep, we're going to let off of the VSA off switch. When we let off of the switch, the VSA light's going to go off, and then it's going to come back on. But when it comes back on, it's going to blink 6 times rapidly. When it does that, we're going to know that the code is cleared. So again, I'm holding the VSA off switch. Now I'm going to turn the ignition to the on position. 1, 2, 3, 4. let off. And you see it blinking. Now we know that the code is cleared. So we can go ahead and turn the ignition off and turn it back on. And I'm gonna go ahead and start up the vehicle. Now, as you can see, the engine is running. But if you look over here, we still have the VSA and the ABS light on. And we have the VSA indicator on. So we still have a code stored in the memory. Again, like I said, this procedure will clear the code 98, but in our case, it didn't clear the code 84. Let me hook up the scan tool and I'll show you what happened. All right, so we have the scan tool hooked up and we're gonna go into the codes menu and I'm gonna show you that the code 98 has been cleared, hopefully. All right, so as you can see, we have a code 84-1, steering sensor input error, but our code 98 is gone. So like I said, that procedure does work to clear code 98, but it does not work to clear code 84. There's actually a separate procedure for doing this, and it's basically the neutral rewrite. But like I said, when we try to do the neutral rewrite using a scan tool, it doesn't work. We go into the functional test, and I've tried several different scan tools, but none of them can complete the neutral rewrite for the steering position. So I'm gonna show you how to do it manually. All right guys, so over here at the computer, and up on the screen, I've got the procedure for the steering angle memorization. Now, if you read through this, you'll actually see that there's two different modes that you can put the VSA computer into. The first mode is going to be the check mode, which is essentially you're just checking to see if the VSA computer has a learned memorized position for the steering angle. We're not going to worry about that. What we're looking for is the memorization mode. This is going to be how you do the neutral rewrite manually. So if we follow steps 1 through 9, this is how we're going to be able to get rid of the code 84-1. Now, this procedure is pretty complicated. I don't expect you guys to memorize it just by watching this video. I'm going to try to put a link in the description for a downloadable version that you can print up. But anyways, let's go ahead and go through the procedure. So step 1, they want us to connect the SCS connector or service connector. Now this connector is located underneath the glove box on the passenger side. And what they want you to do is essentially short it using a service check connector. That's a special tool. It's not required. We can do it with the paper clip. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Step 2 is we're going to turn the ignition switch on. When we turn the ignition switch on, step 3 is to press the VSA off switch twice before the VSA activation indicator comes on again. Then step 4, it says the VSA activation indicator comes on for 0.3 seconds, then the indicator goes off 0.2 seconds and then comes back on. So that happens really fast. It's like a flash. Then step 5, turn the steering wheel from the straight ahead position to the right until the activation goes off, and you need to do that within 8 seconds. After the VSA activation indicator comes on, it says turn the steering wheel to the left. You have to do that within 8 seconds. And so after performing that, it says that the light's going to come back on, and then they want you to push the switch within 12 seconds. Now, if you look over here on this side of the screen, there's actually kind of a timetable or a time graph of how the procedure is done. So if you look over here, this is going to be the VSA activation indicator, and the line graph is going to show you when it's on and when it's off. And if you look over here, this is going to be the VSA off switch, and you'll see where they want you to press it. And then this is going to be the steering angle. So it's going to be in the center, then when you turn the steering angle. So if you follow the correlation of these, when you first turn the ignition switch on, the VSA activation indicator is going to be on, and when it goes off, that's when they want you to push the button twice really fast before the light comes back on. When that light comes back on, it's going to come on very briefly, it's going to go off very briefly, and then it's going to come back on. Once it's on, it's going to stay on for about 8 seconds. During that time, they want you to turn the steering wheel to the right, and then the indicator is going to go off. When the indicator goes off and comes back on, they want you to turn the steering wheel to the left. And then when you turn it to the left, the indicator should go off, and then it'll come back on. When that indicator comes back on, they want you to push the VSA off switch again. Once you do that, you've memorized the steering angle. So I know that sounds kind of complicated, but let me take you over to the vehicle and I'll show you how to do it. All right guys, so if we move over to the passenger side and we look under the glove box, you'll find this blue SCS service connector right here. It's actually attached underneath right here to this blue plastic clip. I actually just removed the clip so it was easier to get to. So anyways, we're going to want to take a paper clip and we're going to jump these two pins together. All right, so I've got the paper clip right here. I'm just going to stick it in and jump the two pins together. All right, so now that we have the paper clip jumping the 2 pins together, we're gonna go ahead and move over to the driver's side and turn the ignition on. All right, so over here on the driver's side, I'm gonna go ahead and put the key into the ignition, and you're gonna see that the VSA indicator is gonna come on and then it's gonna go off. When it goes off, we're gonna push the VSA switch twice really fast. The light's gonna blink and then it's gonna stay on. And then during the time that it's on, we're gonna turn the steering wheel to the right. It's gonna go off, then we're gonna turn the steering wheel to the left. It's gonna go off, and then we're gonna go back to the middle, and then we're gonna push the button once again. So again, I'm gonna turn the ignition switch on. See the light come on, and then it goes off. Hit this twice. Now it flashes. Now we're gonna go to the right. You see the light go off. Then we're gonna go to the left. The light goes off. And we're gonna go back to the center. And then we're gonna push the button one more time. Now you'll see it flash. And what the procedure says is that once we do this, it goes back into the check mode. So once we're in the check mode, you'll see that when the steering wheel is centered, you'll see that the light is illuminated. And then when we go to the right, you'll see that it turns off. We go back to the center, it comes on. Then we go to the left, it goes off. So this is how we know that it now has a learned, memorized position. So we're gonna go ahead and push the button one more time. You see it flash, and we're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the ignition off. Then we're gonna go ahead and remove the paper clip from the SES connector. Now moving back to the passenger side, we're gonna go ahead and remove the paper clip from the connector. And then now we're gonna go ahead and start the vehicle up. Okay, so now for the moment of truth, we're gonna go ahead and turn the ignition on, start the vehicle up. And our ABS and VSA light are now gone. The brake light is on because we still have the parking brake on. Go ahead and release the parking brake, and our brake light is off. That's a fix, guys. Now we can even go the extra step and reconnect the scan tool and scan, and we'll see that there's no codes in the module. Let me go ahead and hook up the scan tool. All right, so we got the scan tool hooked up again. I'm gonna go into the codes menu. No codes to display. So we have now cleared both of the codes by doing both of the reset procedures, and we are good to go. Anyways, guys, I hope you found the video useful. I hope you found it entertaining. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.